My name's Lucas. I'm 29, and let me just say, if you've ever thought being the responsible one in your family would earn you loyalty, respect, or even a little basic decency, you might want to sit down for this one. I grew up in a house where responsibility wasn't a shared trait. It was a burden tossed to whoever wouldn't drop it. And since I was the oldest, the one with the job, the apartment, the head on his shoulders, guess who became the family's unofficial safety net? That's right, me. Rent? Covered it more than once. Surprise bills? I was the miracle worker. My dad's car insurance? Paid every month like clockwork from my account. At first, it didn't feel like charity. It felt like family. Like stepping up because no one else could. Or maybe wouldn't. But slowly, painfully, I realized I wasn't being appreciated. I was being used. It started small. Missed calls unless they needed something. Inside jokes I wasn't part of anymore. Last-minute family gatherings I heard about after the group photos went up. But I told myself it was nothing. We're all busy, right? Life happens. People forget to include you. Doesn't mean they've forgotten you. Except, it kept happening. And every time, it stung a little more. I'd scroll through social media and see my sister Emma, 2 years younger, chronically underemployed, somehow always on vacation, tagging everyone in posts from family nights I'd never heard about. My brother Josh? He used to text me every week. Now I only heard from him when his student loan payment bounced. My mom would call sometimes, but it always had this weird guilt-laced undertone, like she was reminding me how lucky I was to have money and how I should feel good about helping them. And maybe I would have kept helping. Maybe I would have kept swallowing the loneliness and pretending everything was fine if it weren't for what happened last month. My birthday. Now, I'm not the kind of guy who throws a fit over people forgetting to send a card. But this year, I decided to do something nice for once, just for me. I booked out a private lounge at a downtown bistro I'd been dying to try. It wasn't cheap, but I figured, hey, it's my 29th, 1 year before the big 3-0. Let's make a memory. I paid the deposit in full, set the menu, even arranged for custom cupcakes because Emma's allergic to nuts and Josh doesn't eat dairy. I covered everything. No, bring your wallet just in case, messages. I made it as easy as possible for them to just show up, sit down, eat, and laugh. I even sent reminders. Not once, not twice, 3 times that week. Confirmed RSVPs. Emma sent a thumbs up. Josh said, sounds good. My mom replied with a heart emoji. So I got to the lounge early. Wore my nicest jacket. Had the playlist queued, the drinks ready, the lighting low and warm. I sat near the window, just watching the city lights blink on one by one, thinking this might actually be nice. 7 o'clock came. Then 7:15. I ordered a drink. Told myself they were just late. They always were. By 8, the waiter had cleared away the untouched appetizers with a sympathetic smile. I was still alone. My stomach started to knot, not from hunger but from that old, familiar dread. I pulled out my phone, opened Instagram without thinking, and there it was. A group photo. My sister, my brother, my mom, even a few cousins I hadn't seen in months. All gathered around a massive table, clinking glasses, laughing. The caption? Family first. And the location tag? A steakhouse across town. 10 minutes from where I sat. I stared at the photo for a long time. Not blinking. Not breathing. Just existing in that moment of cold, hollow disbelief. I scrolled through the comments. Wish I was there. Looks amazing. So much love in one pic. I kept waiting for someone to say, where's Lucas? But no one did. No one even noticed I wasn't there. Or maybe they did. Maybe that was the point. I didn't text them. Didn't call. I paid the tab in full, tipped well, and walked out. Not angry, numb. Like the part of me that kept making excuses for them had just gone quiet. When I got home, I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat in the dark and thought about all the payments I'd been making quietly, automatically for years. Emma's phone bill. Josh's Netflix. My mom's utilities. The insurance, the streaming services, the little Venmo transfers for groceries that I knew were really takeout. I was the silent engine keeping their lives running, and they couldn't even be bothered to show up for dinner. The next morning, I brewed my coffee, sat down at my laptop, and opened every app, every account, every auto-pay portal. I didn't say a word. I didn't send a warning text. I just started clicking, cancel, remove payment method, turn off auto-renew. One by one, I cut every cord. I was halfway through disconnecting the last shared Spotify account when my phone buzzed. It was Emma. Hey, did you forget to pay the phone bill? My service just dropped. There was no apology. No mention of missing the dinner. Just confusion, like something must be broken, because surely I wouldn't stop providing for her. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I opened Instagram, went back to that group photo, and posted a story of my own. A single sentence, white text on a black background. Funny how family forgets who pays their bills. I didn't tag anyone. Didn't need to. Within an hour, my phone was blowing up. Missed calls, panicked texts, even a voicemail from my mom saying, "Lucas, can we talk?" This is really unfair. I didn't block anyone. That would have been too easy. Too final. No, I wanted them to sit in the silence. I wanted them to feel the weight of me not responding. Because for the first time in years, I wasn't their fixer. I wasn't their ATM. I was just gone. Quiet. And that terrified them more than anything. By noon, I had 17 unread messages. Emma sent 3 crying emojis and a voice note I didn't open. Josh texted, "Come on, man, you're being dramatic." Dramatic. Right. As if waiting alone on your birthday while your entire family celebrates without you across town is just a quirk. As if funding their lives for years and being discarded like an old receipt wasn't enough to justify a little drama. I sipped my coffee and shook my head. Around 2 p.m., my mom called again. This time I answered. "Lucas," she said, cautious. Like she wasn't sure which version of me she was going to get. I stayed silent. I heard you were upset." "You heard," I said slowly. "Noticed I wasn't at dinner, did you?" She hesitated. "Sweetheart, it wasn't. Emma said you were busy. That you had something else planned." I almost laughed. "Something else? Like the dinner I invited everyone to? That you confirmed you'd come to?" "Lucas," she sighed, "we didn't mean to hurt your feelings." "You didn't mean to," I echoed, tasting the bitterness of it. There was a long pause. "You know we love you," she added. That was when something inside me just snapped, clean and quiet like a brittle twig under pressure. "No," I said. "You love that I pay the bills. You love that I never say no. You love having someone to clean up the mess, fix the problem, bail you out. But me? The person? You forgot I existed the moment I stopped being useful." "Lucas, don't say that," she murmured, and suddenly I could hear it, real panic in her voice. Because I wasn't yelling. I wasn't pleading. I wasn't even angry. I was done. And that, more than anything, scared her. "I'm not saying it to hurt you," I said quietly. "I'm saying it because it's true." Another silence. Then, desperate. "So what now? You're just cutting us off." I almost answered, but instead I said, "Mom, did you know Emma posted family first while I was sitting alone at my own birthday dinner?" More silence. I covered the tab. I booked the lounge. I even ordered her a special cupcake. But I guess family only means something when I'm footing the bill. I didn't see that post. Well, now you know. So, yes, I've canceled everything. No more autopay. No more, "Can I borrow just until Friday?" I'm not angry. I'm just not participating anymore. "But how are we supposed to?" "That's the thing," I interrupted. "You're not supposed to rely on me. You're grown adults. Figure it out." Just like I did. I hung up before she could say more. That night, I got a knock on my apartment door. I opened it to find Josh standing there, arms crossed, face tight with whatever cocktail of guilt and frustration he'd been stewing in all day. "Can we talk?" he asked. I leaned against the doorframe. "I don't think there's anything left to say." He gave a short, humorless laugh. "You're really doing this? Just walking away from your own family?" "Family walked away from me a long time ago," I said. Josh shifted, trying to find an angle. "You think you're the only one struggling? Bet you're the only one who's ever had to sacrifice." "No," I said. "But I am the only one who keeps sacrificing while everyone else sits back and orders dessert." That hit. His jaw tightened. "You weren't even going to tell me, were you?" I added. "Just let me find out through a picture, like some outsider scrolling through a stranger's feed." "We didn't think it was a big deal," he muttered. "You're right," I said. "It's not. Not anymore." He stood there a moment longer, like he might argue, or apologize, or punch a wall. But in the end, he just turned and walked away. And still, that wasn't the turning point. That wasn't even the climax. Because what they didn't know, what none of them bothered to pay attention to, was that the money I'd been sending, the support I gave, it was never just charity. I tied my name to a lot more than they realized. Cosign loans, family plans, utility accounts, insurance policies. Some of those things couldn't be canceled with a button. Some of them needed to be rewritten. And that, dear Reddit, is exactly what I started working on the next day. The next morning, I woke up early, earlier than usual, actually. Not out of stress, not from tossing and turning all night, but from a weird, steady calm, like something heavy had finally been lifted. The sun was coming through the blinds and soft strips. My coffee tasted stronger. Even the silence in my apartment felt clean. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was racing to keep a dozen plates spinning in the air for everyone else. I felt like I could finally breathe. I opened my laptop and started going through every account tied to my name carefully, methodically. My brother's car loan? I'd co-signed on it 5 years ago when he didn't have the credit. I didn't even know he'd defaulted twice. That morning, I called the bank and asked about transferring liability. They said I'd have to file paperwork to release myself from the loan, but it would require his signature. I filed the forms anyway. Just having the process started gave me peace. Next up was Emma. She'd been on my health insurance plan through my employer. When she lost her part-time job last year and couldn't afford coverage, I added her as a dependent, told myself it was temporary. But she never looked for a new job, never mentioned leaving the plan. Just kept sending me Venmos with captions like, "Thanks," after each doctor visit, even when she didn't actually send anything. I submitted the removal request. Then there was the electric bill at my mom's house. It was in my name, set up years ago when their old power got shut off for non-payment. I'd forgotten it was still running through me. The last 6 months? $180, $210, $240, and no one ever mentioned the lights being on because of me. I called the utility company, explained the situation, and requested a name change on the account. They said my mom would have to apply as a new customer and pass a credit check. I gave the go-ahead. Let them handle it. I know some people would say I went too far, that I should have given them a warning, let them prepare. But here's the thing, they never warned me. Not when they planned a dinner behind my back. Not when they used my name, my money, my trust like it was disposable. So I didn't owe them the courtesy they'd never extended. A few days later, the calls started again. Not just from my family, now it was credit collectors. A car loan department. A representative from the health insurance team asking if Emma was aware of the removal. One even called my emergency contact number. Emma had listed me. I changed my number by the end of the week. That weekend, I got an email from Emma. The subject line was, "Are you serious?" Inside was just one paragraph. "I get that you're mad, but punishing all of us like this is just mean. You could have talked to us like adults. Cutting us off like we're strangers? That's low, Lucas. Real low." I stared at that email for a long time. And when I finally replied, I kept it short. Strangers don't expect me to pay their bills. Maybe that's the problem. You never saw me as family. Just a wallet that answered texts. No response. 3 days later, Josh showed up at my office. I don't know how he knew where I worked. I never told him, but I guess that's what happens when people suddenly need you again. They get creative. My assistant called and said a guy was waiting in the lobby. Looked pissed. I told her to send him up. When he walked into my office, he didn't look angry. He looked exhausted. Like he hadn't slept. Dark circles under his eyes, hands fidgeting like he didn't know what to do with them. "You really canceled the loan?" he asked, not even bothering with hello. "I started the process," I said. "You'll need to sign your half." "Why would you do that?" "You know I can't afford it on my own right now." I raised an eyebrow. "Then maybe you should have been at my birthday dinner. Or any of the dinners you didn't invite me to. Or maybe you should have checked the loan status instead of assuming I'd always be your safety net." Josh ran a hand through his hair. "We thought you were fine, man. Like, we just thought you liked being the guy who helped. You never said anything." "That's the thing," I said, leaning forward. "It's not my job to beg for respect. Or love. Or a seat at the table." He sat down, like his knees suddenly couldn't hold him anymore. "So what? This is it? You're just gonna erase yourself from the family?" I shook my head. "I didn't erase me. I erased the version of me you all depended on without giving anything back." There was a long pause. Then Josh said something I didn't expect. "Mom's crying every day." That sentence should have made me feel something. Maybe guilt. Maybe regret. But it didn't. It made me feel validated. "Then maybe she should sit with the choices she made," I replied. Just like I did. Alone. On my birthday. Josh looked up, and for the first time in years, I think he actually saw me. Not the cash cow. Not the always their big brother. But a man with limits. Boundaries. And pain. He left without saying another word. But that wasn't the end. The real twist? That came a week later, when a legal envelope showed up in my mailbox with my dad's name on the return address. A name I hadn't said out loud in over a year. And inside? Well, let's just say what was in that envelope made everything that came before look like child's play. It was a thick envelope, one of those padded ones you normally see used for sensitive paperwork or return keys. My name was handwritten on the front in a tight, familiar scrawl. I hadn't seen it in years, but it stopped me cold. My dad. We'd been estranged since the year after college. It was never one big blow-up, just the slow erosion of respect. He drank too much, blamed others for his problems, and expected the world to bend around his wants. When my mom stayed with him for the sake of the family, I knew I had to make peace with never getting the father I needed. I moved out and, over time, stopped picking up his calls. When he needed money, my mom would ask. When he got in trouble, my siblings would handle it. I stayed out of it. For good reason. But this envelope, it wasn't his style. He didn't write letters. He barely texted. He had once told me email was a government trap. So I sat on the edge of my couch and opened it with that strange mix of curiosity and dread. Inside was a letter folded over some documents. I read the letter first. Lucas, I don't expect you to read this. But if you're holding it, it means you haven't completely walked away. And if that's true, then maybe you'll understand why I'm doing this. I heard about what happened. I heard about the dinner. I wasn't invited either. Maybe that surprises you. Maybe it doesn't. But I saw that post. Family first. And for a second, I actually laughed. Because it was so backwards, I couldn't believe it. I've made a lot of mistakes. Most of them involved thinking people would stick around no matter how badly I treated them. But it turns out even bridges that look solid will burn if you soak them long enough. Enclosed is something I've been sitting on for a while. It's not charity. It's not hush money. It's just mine. And I'm giving it to you, because despite everything, you're the only one who's ever stood on your own. The only one who never came to me with his hand out. The only one I couldn't break. Do whatever you want with it. You don't owe me anything. Just don't let them take it. Dad, I didn't know what to expect when I looked at the documents underneath. Maybe some weird family photos or an old story he wanted to pass down. But it wasn't that. It was a deed. A transfer of property. To me. At first, I didn't even understand what I was looking at. But the address clicked. It was an old lake cabin. My grandfather's place. It had been in the family forever, and after he passed away, there was a bitter argument over who'd get it. Everyone assumed it had gone to my uncle. I remember my mom once saying, "Your dad messed that one up like everything else." But apparently, he hadn't. Apparently, he'd kept it. And now, he was giving it to me. Signed. Notarized. Final. I spent the rest of that night researching. The property had appreciated over the years. The land alone was worth close to $300,000, not to mention the fact that the area had become something of a resort town, meaning rental opportunities were booming. I checked tax records. He hadn't rented it out. He just let it sit. Quiet. Untouched. And now, it was mine. The timing wasn't lost on me. It felt like my father, however flawed, was drawing a line in the sand. Like he was saying, they may have forgotten you, but I didn't. Or maybe he just wanted to make sure someone in the family used it for something other than weekend selfies and empty toasts. Either way, it changed everything. I didn't tell anyone about the letter. Not at first. I needed time. I drove up to the cabin the following weekend. The air was crisp. The lake was still. The house was old but solid. It needed work, sure. But it wasn't crumbling. It had good bones. Like maybe, just maybe, I could build something with it. Something of my own. Something separate from the mess I'd left behind. I didn't post about it. Didn't take pictures. Just sat on the porch with a coffee and a quiet heart. But nothing stays quiet for long in my family. About 2 weeks later, Emma showed up at my apartment. No warning. No text. Just a knock on the door while I was halfway through dinner. I opened it and found her there, makeup smudged, eyes red. "We need to talk," she said, voice shaking. I didn't move from the doorway. "You didn't answer my emails," she continued. "Or my messages. Josh said you talked to Dad." I crossed my arms. "I didn't talk to him. I got a letter." Her face flickered. "And? Did he tell you about the cabin?" There it was. I didn't answer. Her voice went hard. "You knew that was supposed to go to Josh." "No," I said, coolly. "You assumed it would. Like everything else." Her nostrils flared. "We deserve to be part of that. It's part of the family legacy." I actually laughed. I couldn't help it. "You mean the family that forgot I existed unless a bill needed paying? The same family that ghosted me on my birthday and toasted to themselves across town? That wasn't about you," she snapped. It just happened that way. No, I said, stepping forward. It always happens that way. I make room for everyone. I make time. I make payments. And I get leftovers if I'm lucky. But not anymore. Her eyes filled with tears, but I didn't soften. I watched her search for sympathy in my face and find nothing left. We could sell it, she said finally. Split the money. It would help Mom. Josh is drowning. You don't even need it. Exactly, I said. I don't need it. That's why I won't sell it. Because it's the first thing in this family that was given to me with no strings attached. And I'm keeping it. She looked like she wanted to scream, but she just turned and stormed off down the hall. That was the last time I saw her in person. In the months that followed, things got quieter. My mom stopped calling. Josh sent a few sarcastic texts and then gave up. Emma unfollowed me on everything. But I didn't go back. I didn't chase. I didn't explain myself. I let them sit in the silence they'd earned. Instead, I fixed up the cabin. Week by week, I replaced the siding, refinished the floors, painted the walls. I'd play old music on the radio and drink coffee on the porch. Eventually, I rented it out part-time and kept it the rest of the year for myself. My own space. My own peace. Sometimes, when the lake's still and the wind's quiet, I think about how close I came to letting them break me completely. How easy it would have been to just keep paying, keep hoping, keep waiting for a seat at a table I was never really welcome at. But now I've got my own table, my own space. And the only people who sit with me are the ones who bring something real. So no, I didn't burn the bridge. I just stopped holding it up by myself. And I watched calmly as they realized it couldn't stand without me.